Hello, my name is Erica Saltoff. I am a special education resource center teacher in New Jersey. And the topic I chose to explore and the heritage I chose to further research is Latino culture as far as being English language learners within the classroom. And the reason why I chose this particular topic is my exposure to English language learners is rather limited during the school year due to my role in the particular elementary school. My school district does have 5 elementary schools, and I am currently working as a summer school teacher with multiple schools presented within my population. So I do have 2 students who come from a Spanish-speaking home from a Latino heritage. So I was interested to learn more about this, especially as I've come into some interesting interactions with the families this summer where I've had to communicate through the actual student and also through siblings in order to provide communication between us. So through my research, I did find some concerns, some especially statistically. According to Aganza et al., Latinos are the largest minority group in the USA and the fastest growing portion of the school-age population. So we do know that, of course, this subgroup is growing. It's been here for a long time, and we need to realize how we're going to address those learning needs. So therefore, the domains of literacy, reading, writing, listening, and speaking don't necessarily prove in our favor for those Latino students coming from those Latino heritage homes. The facts are that only 73% of Latino students earn a high school degree compared to 88% of European American students. Those with limited English skills graduate at a far lower rate of 59%. And then in 10 states, English language learners make up between 10% and 24% of the school age population. Close to 80% of the English language learners are Spanish speaking. So clearly, we have a large population that is um, at risk. So, what are the contributing factors for this risk? Poverty from homes, segregation, parental education, lack of teacher preparedness, lack of student engagement, and social support. So we have all these factors that are contributing our home life, where they're living, how much do the parents know, how much are they involved with their students and their schools, how much are they able to provide communication as their skills are lacking, and how much they are able to support the learning of their child, as well as how much our teachers are prepared to deal with these types of students. So once they're in their classroom, they should be able to provide strategies to target learning needs that are specific for that child. And if those teachers are not, then the district should be providing teachers who are fully equipped to engage those learners. And then again, it's that lack of student engagement and social support. So we need to make sure that we're fostering them socially as well, and making them feel at ease and in a positive learning environment, which will then, affect their overall behaviors and encourage them to want to learn. So, what are those Latino cultural aspects that may influence our learners? What is that specifically from their heritage that is going to impact them? The Latinos considered family the core of each other's support and are very protective of their youth. So they are strong in their family dynamic and they are protective over their children. So that is wonderful that they feel that way. However, how are we going to use that to our advantage, which I'll get to in a moment? Also, that they are raised to respect elders and the jobs that they hold, and that they also consider those non-academic jobs just as important as those receiving education. So you really, it's not that they don't value having a job or earning money, but they also consider them, things that don't involve education equally as important. So therefore, we need to take our job as an educator and really make it clear to parents that education is really where we need to put our focus. So Woolley 2009 writes, when the adults hold high educational expectations for youth, from there, then passing that on to their students, so to their children. So we want to actually go for the parents to ensure that they are supporting the idea that education is important, that it is valued, that they will be more successful with a proper education. Also, that it is important that we clarify the importance of those academics, as we've said before, that they are the ones that are really going to influence their child by telling them, okay, this is something that is important to you for the following reasons, and that's why you need to work your hardest and do your best. We also want to encourage them working to their best abilities and really communicate what they need done in terms of school. So getting through to the parent, okay, these are the homework assignments, these are the units of studies. Um, we need your child to study, we need your child to complete the homework, this is why, and they need to be earning good grades for the following reasons so that we can further their education, they can go to college, and making it clear that, you know, education is really where our focus needs to lie. So one extreme area of concern is, especially for me as a special education teacher, is how we are misinterpreting Latinos and Spanish speaking learners or English as a second language learners and actually crossing them over into special education, which is something that I personally am curious of regarding my two students in my current role, because while working with them, I can't help to wonder if they truly are not special education, that their learning differences are due to their cultural differences, to the ability that they come from a non-English speaking home, and how they have come so long far in learning and acquiring their own language and working so hard to catch up, and therefore, comprehension difficulties due to language barriers, etc. So um, this is definitely a real concern because it is truly happening. So they are many classifications that might be overrepresented for those English as a second language learners, such as emotionally disturbed, intellectually disabled, learning disabled, and speech and language impairment. So, um, the emotionally disturbed piece, which we'll get into a little bit more in depth with my further slides, these students are acting out and they spiral and they get out of control, and then by the time they're out of the classroom, they're being classified as emotionally disturbed. So I'll also go into some strategies in terms of how can we address this early on at the elementary level so that we are preventing this. And then again, the intellectual disability, which I'll go into in my next slide. So underdiagnosed classifications is just that they're health impaired, because that's really one that's coming from a medical diagnosis. So that's not where you're really going to find those English language learners coming into classification. Um, so just a quick fact would be that 8.4% of the ESL students are classified with learning disability, and that misdiagnosis has become an urgent concern. And then again, it takes on these two forms: they're either overrepresented or underrepresented. So in terms of, as I mentioned before, the behavioral concerns, they're emotionally behaviorally disturbed. So as the schools are acquiring this zero tolerance policy, these children are getting, in much more trouble. They're getting kicked out of class. And then where do we go from there? So I see personally in my district a huge shift in what's happening at the elementary level versus the middle school level. Things and behaviors that we're having at the elementary level that are concerns are zero tolerance policy once they get to the middle school. They will be expelled, they will face consequences, they will be suspended, and then what goes from there? Eventually, I have seen classification. So, it's not hard to believe, after reading these facts and seeing what I've seen. So, why is this happening? Again, there's the home life concerns and the home life factors, such as a lot of the Latino students attend overcrowded urban schools, limited resources, and of course, we need trained faculty to meet their needs. So that's again a common trend that we're seeing. Also, in terms of academics, students are being underrepresented in kindergarten and then overdiagnosed by grade 3. And that's something I typically see in special education in general, just because when you're starting at the kindergarten level, the gap gets wider as they get older. And how do you present this? Through response to intervention, which we use across the board, but really targeting those specific areas of need for those English language learners. And then functional behavioral assessment. So if we're over-identifying emotionally disturbed, behaviorally disturbed with our ELL learners, we really need to be obtaining a functional behavioral assessment, which is, what is the reasoning behind the behavior? What is, collecting data, what is offsetting this behavior? What is the function of behavior, and then creating a behavior plan and making sure we're tracking its success before we go right to classification. So implications, one thing that I will personally be monitoring in the future is that of assessments. It's very, again, we have to consider the learner, and state tests and standardized tests are not effective for the ELL learners. And the following reasons through my research of Gandhi 2013 listed that the student may not be able to read the passage, there's linguistic and cultural bias, and the student may not have enough knowledge of a topic to make sense of it, they can't write the answer. So what they don't test is how is the student actually using strategies? How are they approaching the task? What are the miscues that are, and how can we reflect their true ability? It's not through that standardized test. But how should it look? We should evaluate them often. We should conduct observations, student interviews, analyze those errors, have the student retell the story to us, story questioning, and writing folders. So, teachers should evaluate teachers' reading ability using several measures, according to Gandhi, and he believes that these are independent reading inventories, such as the Fonda Zimpernel reading benchmarks that we use in our classrooms. That's really the way to go, because you're really sitting with the child individually and analyzing those reading behaviors. So instructional practices and recommendations. There are many strategies that can be used in order to maximize learning potential for Latino learners. The following chart represents those strategies. So I'm going to go ahead and list some strategies quickly and go through them for you. Story talk, using culturally relevant material, just providing those students with opportunity to share their experiences with their culture and connect them with their own background knowledge in order to learn new material. Also, visual pictures to represent vocabulary are going to be, again, such an effective strategy. Pre-reading across content areas, enhancing vocabulary linguistically, also through using teaching methods of instructional reading knowledge to their own experiences again. Another interesting strategy that I learned of was incorporating cognates, which are words in Spanish and English that share the same etymology and have identical or nearly identical spellings. So you have words that are really being reflected in both languages. It's very interesting because it's something that I never even knew about. Comprehending vocabulary across content areas, spelling of vocabulary, you're really taking those prefixes and suffixes and you're analyzing the words and seeing what kind of crossover you can find through text. And that will increase meaning, enhance and increase meaning for those students, and it makes it easier transition for them to cross over. One resource I would definitely suggest looking upon is this example of picture books, which someone had here. And here's the website right here for you to look at. They give you picture books and resources that you can use with cognates as a learning tool. So there's a bunch of books listed there that you can use within your classroom. Social emotional strategies for supporting ESL. So again, we don't want to just look at those instructional implications for academics, but also for how can we support them emotionally and socially. And again, which I've said before, the parent communication and educating those parents is so important. With their support, homework will be better off getting completed and studying, and the importance for the student, and they feel valid in the school. So really getting those parents involved is a majorly important component. Friend behavior, foster social relationships, offer guidance, and show cultural differences in a positive light. So just really making sure that you are enhancing that student and socially making them positive, making a positive classroom for them to feel comfortable in. And then student-teacher relationships. Do not, quote, withdraw with those troubled students. That it seems, according to Woolley, 2009, it seems likely that when a teacher does not invest in a student based on his or her chosen group of friends, it negatively could influence them. So you want to make sure that you support them. So here's a list of my references. I would say in conclusion, again, taking what the student has in advance for them culturally and what they know, and keeping an eye on them throughout their whole school career, both socially and academically, and them really fostering that learning environment and creating the positive communication between parents and taking on all those cultural aspects and moving them towards a positive way. I hope that you enjoyed my presentation.